It's me, Aaron, Professor Thorgy, your guide to all things geeky, and I swear this is it. This is the final day that I talk about Deadpool. I've been talking about this film for a week straight, so I know you guys are probably getting sick of it, but when Jim and the Holograms tanked so colossally at the box office, it was important. It made a statement, and I made a video talking all about that, and I've been sitting here looking at Deadpool breaking all these records, and I realized this says something as well. So I wanted to make a video today talking all about the success that it's had and what exactly that means for movies in general, but especially for R-rated films and for comic book movies. But before I get into those, let's just go ahead and look at some of the records that it has already broken. Largest February Thursday preview, $12.7 million. The previous record, $8.6 million from 50 Shades of Grey. Largest opening day in February, $47.5 million. Previous record, $30.2 from 50 Shades of Grey. Largest single day in February. Previous record, 50 Shades of Grey. Largest February opening weekend. Previous record, 50 Shades of Grey. Largest 4-day President's Weekend. You know what the previous holder was. Largest R-rated opening. Previous record held by The Matrix Reload. Largest R-rated comic adaptation opening weekend. Previous holder, 300. Largest winter season opening weekend. Previous record was American Sniper. And lastly, and this is probably the most impressive one, the largest opening ever for 20th Century Fox. It brought in $132.75 million, and the previous record was $108.4 million from Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. Now I know some people out there are going to say, yeah, but that came out 10 years ago, so when you adjust for inflation, it's actually more. Actually, I did the math. When you adjust for inflation, Star Wars Revenge of the Sith comes in at $131.5 million. A whole million less than this. This movie did indeed make more than Star Wars. That is insane to me. Now, first thing I want to bring up is that I am glad that this beat 50 Shades of Grey for every record that it held, because if you watched my worst movies of 2015 list, you know that was number one because it was a destructive, manipulative piece of crap that was damaging to our very society, whereas this film was actually pretty darn good. Also, I want to point out that it beat out 50 Shades of Grey for opening Valentine's Day weekend, which is very appropriate, seeing as how Deadpool was a much better love story than 50 Shades of Grey. But as I've said, the success of this film is very important, not just because it shows the power of the internet and the power to spread word, because nobody knew who Deadpool was who wasn't a comic book reader. However, the internet did its job here. The internet spread the word of mouth on this, and everybody came out saying it was really good. People who went and saw this, or just even saw the trailer and went, that's the character I love, started doing the work for the studio. And that is what I want to bring up, is that I have mentioned this in all my other reviews of this film, that Fox seems to still be that one studio out there that's just like, yeah, comic book movies, I don't know if that's gonna fly. I don't know if mainstream audiences are going to buy this. We gotta tone that down. We all saw what they did to Fantastic Four last year, in which they took all the fantastic out of it because they thought movie studio audiences didn't want to see that. And even when it comes to the X-Men, which is their actual successful franchise, they still try to tone it down. I mean, don't get me wrong, that one plays into the comic book side of it more than Fantastic Four did. Pretty much anything would. But they still come in and it's like, yeah, no costumes, Beast, he's blue and furry, make him human half of it. I don't care if it makes no sense. We can't have a big blue furry guy up there for the entire thing. Fox still seems afraid to lean into the fantastic. They still seem afraid to lean into all that stuff that makes the comic books work and make them special. They are afraid to put that up on screen. That is why when we got Deadpool the first time, they looked at what his character was in the comics and they went, oh, he's jokey, and he wears bright red, and he's jumping around and breaking the fourth wall, and he's goofy and silly. Nobody wants to see that. They want dark and edgy, and that's why they took everything away from that character and gave us, you know what they gave us. I don't even need to summarize that for you guys. So the fact that this film came in, and it actually leaned into all of that, and it actually embraced all of that. But it was then that successful, more successful than anybody imagined. And it wasn't just successful because people knew who Deadpool was, it's because it was that good. It's because word of mouth spread on this, and it's because people saw a film that they loved, and they're going to keep going back and seeing it over and over and over again, and they're going to tell their friends to go and see it. That means a lot for the future of Fox. That means that Fox is going to have to come in here and look at the way it's been treating some of its characters and going, what if we actually, I don't know, embrace this? If this film had flopped, then Fox might have looked at selling Fantastic Four back to Marvel, but because this film was such a success, I can see Fox holding on to the Fantastic Four a little bit longer and going, no, we're going to try one more time. And this time we're going to try and get it right. But it's not just that they lean into the comic book aspect of this that is so important, it's also that this was an R-rated superhero film. Now we've had R-rated superhero films before. We've had Blade, we've had Punisher, but those were both really dark, edgy things that were all about murder basically. This was a film about love. It was a film about a couple. It was a film about humor. It was a comedy. It was a film about freaking superheroes. Punisher is not going to have Captain America show up in it. Alright? Daredevil Netflix show is never going to have the Hulk come crashing in. Okay, we have had very serious R-rated levels of superheroes before, but they never embraced the comic book side of it that much. They always tried to lean into the serious side of it. This is the first film that showed, no, you can have that comic book cake and eat it with your R-rated fork too. And that's the most important thing about this, because this was a very different type of superhero film. I complained in my review that the ending of it is, yeah, it's something that we've seen before, but everything leading up to that was completely different. And don't get me wrong, I love superhero films, and I still think that we are turning out a lot of great superhero films, but it is getting to that point where it's like, okay, now it's time to do something different. You gotta give me something that is just a complete game changer, and that's what this was. After the success of this film, we are now going to start seeing some very different types of superhero films. We're going to see producers and directors and writers coming in going, how can we treat this differently from what we've seen before? And it also means, fingers crossed, that we might finally get that R-rated Wolverine film. Long before Deadpool was in the works, when Wolverine was getting his first solo film, people were saying, you gotta make it rated R. It's Wolverine. His mutant power is he stabs people. I've always found it so weird that in the comic books, Wolverine can slice people into a pile of goo, but he can't smoke or curse because that wouldn't be safe for kids. But in the movies, he can smoke and curse, but he can't slice people into a pile of goo because that wouldn't be safe for kids. I'm not saying which of those two is correct, I just think it's an interesting thing to bring up. But yes, people have been saying for the longest time that you need to give Wolverine an R-rated film. It's the only way to accurately adapt this character. And Fox always came out and said, no, we're not doing that because kids love Wolverine. Yeah, that's not really true anymore. It's typically the older audiences that care about Wolverine at this point. But you know who kids do love? Deadpool. Who did you just give an R-rated film to that was a massive success? Deadpool. And that's the other thing that I want to bring up, is the fact that this was R-rated and it was a massive success. Because, listen, I'm not one of those guys who comes in and is like, oh, in order for this horror film to be good, I gotta see blood. Oh, in order for this action film to be good, I gotta see blood when people get shot. I don't really care about that stuff. I don't care about gore. I don't care about how far you go with it. I just care about making a good film. However, there are some franchises out there that in order for them to really succeed and embrace what made them successful and really capture the tone that they are going for, you have to make it R-rated, because there is some stuff that you have to put into the movie that you just can't put in a PG-13 film. And over the past several years, we have seen several of these franchises, including Terminator and RoboCop, bumping themselves down to PG-13 because the studios believed, well, we'll make more money like that. We'll bring in those teenagers, and they're of course wanting another Terminator film. That's the target audience for Terminator movies. So they bumped them down, and those new adaptations of these franchises, they're missing something. They're missing the flavor. They're missing the heart. They're missing the grittiness that made those films what they were, and it's all because the studios believe it'll make more money like that, and those films flopped. They absolutely flopped because the audiences that cared about those franchises looked at what they were about to get and went, that's not the thing I like, and they didn't go to it. Whereas with this film, it proves that's BS. This entire idea that if you make something PG-13, it will just naturally bring in more money is a lie. It's a lie. So finally, Hollywood, can you get it through your heads that it's okay to make R-rated movies again? Can you get it through your head that there are some stories that just need to be rated R? There are some franchises that embrace what it means to be rated R, and that is part of the franchise itself, and doing anything else would be a betrayal of that. It is time to finally wake up and realize some audiences just want an R-rated movie. But alright, those are just the thoughts that I've had about the success of Deadpool. Let me know in the comments down below how you felt about this film and what you think this might mean for the future of R-rated superhero films, or superhero films in general, or just movies in general. I thank you guys for tuning in. If you want to see more Deadpool stuff from me, I'll have some videos at the end of this. And thank you very much for tuning in. Come back next time.